Hello! This is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from the beautiful metaverse and more specifically from beautiful Danville, Illinois. And with me today is our normal Wednesday guest, Krys Copeland. Hi, Krys.
Hi, Reverend Don. Good to see you again. Good to see everyone in the audience.
And this, of course, is Midday with Reverend Don. And as you know, if you follow Midday with Reverend Don, you can type your questions or comments onto whatever platform you're watching on, and they should show up here in our chat room. And we can talk with you directly. And that's if you're watching live, of course. Today, of course, we're going to be talking about Corellian publishing. And before we get going, I just want to remind you that we are doing pre-orders for the Tarot of Hecate. And if you're interested in getting into that first order, which will be going out soon because we're almost there, you can find it at corellianpublishing.com under the Infinite Tarot button. And if it turns out you don't get into the first order, you can get into the second one. It's not like we're only going to do it once, but if you can get into the first one, they'll obviously be here sooner. It will take a number of weeks from the time we make the order till the time we get them. And I don't necessarily know exactly how many weeks it will take because it's dependent on overseas shipping. But they'll be here relatively soon. And as soon as they hit our hands, we'll mail them out to you. And that's true with most of our products. We when you order them, we order them from the publisher, and as soon as we get them, we send them to you. Occasionally, it takes longer than normal, and hopefully, we will let you know if that's the case. And hello to Bimby in the chat room. It's good to see you, Bimby.
Hi, Bimby. Good to see you. Yeah, exactly right. We just, I think it was a week or two ago that we placed the order for the Book of Numerology prints. So those
Yes,
should be in any day now. And
they should.
yes, and the reason we have them mailed to our Danville office first is so that everyone who ordered them can get a special little note from Reverend Don in there.
Yes.
Such a nice thing to do to include with that. So just something a little personalized for you, especially for being an early supporter of these books. If you haven't purchased the Book of Numerology yet, you can do so on corellianpublishing.com. And on Amazon, we have both the ebook and the paperback version available. In addition to that, we also have the Book of Astrology available as well. And recently, we just did an explanatory video on our social media feed. So that's at corellian.publishing on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So check out our videos on there because we talk about, in the most recent one, how to combine astrology with numerology and actually apply some of the techniques and tools and tips from those two books together.
And we want to say hello to Antonio in the chat room. It's good to see you, Antonio.
Hi, Antonio. Good to see you.
Yeah, we're starting to get quite a library of books.
Yes.
And somewhere down the line, if somebody wants it, they can have a whole shelf of Reverend Don's book of this and that. And hello to Mary in the chat room.
Hello, Mary.
Hi,
Good to
Mary.
see you. Yes, it's really great to see this Book of series growing as quickly as it is. We already have the Book of Questions portion of it, volumes 1 through 4, and I believe the fourth one is coming up soon to be available. And then on top of that, we have the Corellian Book of the Dead, the Reverend Don's Book of Numerology, Reverend Don's Book of Astrology, and just today I have designed a cover. I don't know exactly if this is going to be the exact cover, so this is a mock-up of the cover for your next book, Reverend Don. Reverend Don's a book of stones, metals, and crystals.
Yes.
And I'll share my screen here of what we have so far with it.
And we want to say hello to Janet in the chat room.
Good to see you, Janet. There we go. So this is our mock-up here. I'll zoom in a bit so you can see a little better. And we've gone with, at this time, tentatively a light blue and orange theme for the cover. But we may change that. This is just an early mock-up of it. So things might be shifted around or slightly different from the final. But we are keeping with that same cover theme. So if you buy one of these Reverend Don's books or the Corellian Book ofs, they're going to have a similar cover for each of them to be kind of just consistent throughout the series. Yeah, so I'm very excited about this one. And I'll just stop sharing here.
So
in addition,
Bimby has a question.
oh,
Bimby is having trouble finding the Book of Numerology on the website.
all right. So let me go over to the website and I'll just walk you through that right now. Let's see.
I'm looking there as well, and I'm also having trouble finding it. So I'm
It
sure it's
might not.
there. I know it is because I put out the link.
Yes, it might not have been updated in the featured collection yet. That's probably something we need to take a look at. So I'll check that after our chat tonight and
Yeah.
put that up there. But if you just type in numerology into the chat bar on the upper left-hand side, you'll see both the Book of Numerology in paperback as well as the book ebook version of it. And my pricing is in euros, but that's just because I'm based in the Netherlands. You will see pricing in whatever your local currency is on our website.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, did it not share? I apologize for that. So up here in the chat or in the search bar is where you'll type in numerology, and then it will be the two that first pop up.
And we'll see if we can't get it more into the book collection.
Yes.
Which it seems not to have gone to, but sometimes this is a hard site to program.
Yeah, we're using Shopify for this, so sometimes things go very easily and it works very well, and other times it's quite complicated, and none of us are tech experts by any means, except maybe Jason. Jason's really good with tech, so maybe we can have him help us out with that.
But if you go to corellianpublishing.com/products / whatever the title you're looking for, in this case, Rev-Don-Book- of numerology -paperback. I think that will get you there, but put it in the question mark in the question place, and it will come up easily.
Yeah, it's that one was a very fun one to work on as well. But I'm even more excited. Yes.
It was interesting going through my own numerology, which I haven't done for a while. Yeah.
Same as well for me during editing, just kind of realizing that the interesting quirk with my birth date, giving me all 4s for my pinnacles and all 0s for my challenge numbers. So quite interesting to dive back into that, because I think it had been 20 years or longer since the last time I looked at it. But I'm really excited about this Stones and Crystals book. We've just outlined it today, what we would like to include in it. And it's going to be a lot of course, the basic stuff that you find out, the correspondences and how to use stones for creating talismans and things like that. But some of the other parts of the book that I feel are really just not typically found in a lot of stone and crystal books are the chapters on how to use stones for psychic abilities, how to detect a stone's aura, and how to use stones for personification.
Yeah, I think people will find it a nice, thorough examination.
Yes.
And talking about history and mythology and so forth associated with stones. And there are some interesting things, and there are some weird little things that we intend to have in it. And we were talking about one of them earlier. We were talking about diamonds, and we were talking about what they're really worth, which is not what you pay in the jewelry store. It's about 1/10 of that. But also, how to recognize them in paintings. And a lot of people don't realize. They look at Renaissance paintings, for example, the various wives of Henry VIII, and people of that era, including Henry himself, and they'll see these little black stones that are in jewelry. And historical recreationists, when they recreate these costumes, usually use little black stones. But they were not black stones at all, they were diamonds. But at that time, that's how they were represented in artwork. And over the next 200 years, you can watch the evolution from that solid black to more highly defined definitions. But one of the things people don't realize is that before the development of modern cutting techniques, that's actually more what they look like. They were not the bright stone that we're associated with in our mind. They were a darker looking stone. And sometimes if you look at, for example, Georgian era diamonds next to later eras, it's pretty obvious that they don't reflect light in quite the same way. And there's a perfect example. And I don't know if people can actually see the little black stones, but she's wearing plenty of them.
Yes, on the little dots here, and then her jewelry here and here as well. And along here, you can see little spots of darkness. Those are actually diamonds and not opal or some other dark colored stone.
Yeah. Long ago, I thought it was jet, which is a stone I'm very fond of. And I thought, oh, how nice. But no, I found out it's diamonds. And again, you can follow the artistic development of how they came to be presented more in the way we would expect. But, that's one of the weird little things about history you don't get if you don't know. And with stones, there are a number of things like that. And another interesting thing about stones, if you look at ancient Egyptian artwork, it's full of stone jewelry. But if you look at the paintings, you're going to assume that it's all very heavy and falls into the broad usek collar and some bracelets and occasional crowns and not much other variation. But if you look at the actual jewelry, it's very varied in what they actually created. And they definitely had a strong metaphysical interpretation of the stones they were using. One of the most famous examples is that usek collar that often is made of turquoise and carnelian, sometimes turquoise, carnelian, and lapis lazuli. And these represent the sky and the deshret, or the desert, and the water. And when you look at them that way, they take on a different meaning. And some of the stones that are used historically were used simply because they were there and because they were easily worked. Others, people went way out of their way to obtain. And, in one of the most famous pieces of Egyptian jewelry, the large kind of chartreuse-colored scarab pectoral from the tomb of Tutankhamun, is meteoritic glass, which forms naturally in the desert. But you would never assume that you were looking at meteoritic glass in a piece of ancient Egyptian artwork if you didn't know they used it. And of course, you're very unlikely to find meteoritic glass in a modern piece of jewelry, but that doesn't mean you couldn't. Well, that's not the one.
Oh, it's
but
not.
That's a good example of an ancient Egyptian piece of jewelry. And you can see the scarab is lapis lazuli, which actually resembles the color of the sacred scarab in nature. And the solar disk is carnelian, and the basket underneath is turquoise. And what people don't know about this, because you see this design a lot in ancient Egyptian jewelry, especially in Egyptiana, where it's often reproduced for modern use, they don't know this is a name. This is a hieroglyphic name. It's what's called a rebus, and it is Neb-Keprura. That's how that is read. And that was the throne name of Tutankhamun. Ancient Egyptians would not have known him as Tutankhamun. They'd have known him as Neb-Keprura. Tutankhamun was his personal name. And if you look at all the artistic depictions of his name, it's that throne name. And a lot of people think it's just a design. They don't realize in Egypt, very often what appear to be abstract designs are not abstract at all. And that's another example of that same rebus worked in different materials. And, this is one of those things. I mean, it's the kind of almost useless trivia that I'm full of. But the thing is, though, in the pagan world, it's not entirely useless. If you're working with a group like the Fellowship of Isis, or any group that's drawing upon Egyptian symbolism, or with like Kemetic reconstructionists, that's actually kind of an important thing to know. Now, a lot of our people do find themselves working with historic symbols that they don't always completely understand, because it can be hard to find some of the information regarding them. But that's taking us far off of our subject of stones, metals, and crystals. You're muted.
I think it actually is quite on topic for this particular thing, because there are so many different little things, little facts that
Mhm.
can be known about these materials
Mhm.
and applied in practical, useful ways. In particular, I love the fact that you're including some cautionary tales about
Yeah.
materials um, and which ones to be more careful with, because they
Mhm.
they might have toxic properties or things like that. And there's this interesting internet story that has
Mhm.
gone around in recent years about a man who found a capsule with some stones inside at a flea
Mhm.
market. And it turned out that those stones were radioactive to the point where it caused some flesh decay. So
Mhm.
always be careful when you're buying your stones. Make sure you know where they come from and what they are, just for safety reasons, because you
Mhm.
never know what's out there.
Yeah, I mean, you need to be familiar with if you're just finding them, it's good to be familiar. Now, if you're getting them from your metaphysical store, there are still some things you should know, which we'll talk about. But you're probably not going to find radium in the local metaphysical store.
Yes.
But you could find it accidentally in an antique market, like that gentleman did.
Mm.
Um, and to have an idea what it will look like if you did is not a bad thing to know. Um, and in that case, it was of the type that is very definitely dangerous. Now, there was a time when radioactive glass was very popular for commercial items. Generally speaking, you don't have to be all that afraid of having radioactive glass. It wasn't that much. I don't know that I'd really recommend eating off of it, but have it in your china cabinet is not a big deal. And in fact, I'm not really under the impression it's going to do you a lot of damage to occasionally eat off of it, but I don't think I'd recommend it.
Mm.
It's just not. I mean, it's not something to be making regular use of, but it's not going to kill you to touch it. However, if you find raw radium in a
That's
vial, be careful of opening it. Other
exactly.
things, though, that people don't think about is that the care of stones is not universal. A lot of people will talk about cleansing your stones by running them underwater, which is a great way to cleanse some stones. Other stones will react badly to water.
Mm.
Selenite will dissolve in water. A number of other stones can be badly affected by water. And yes, if you run it underwater once, that's not likely to happen. But if you do it a lot, you can damage your stone. So it's good to know individual details about your stone like that.
Yeah.
Um, I think that stones like labradorite also do not react well to water. So you want to be mindful of that. And then you've got things like pearls that love water because that's where they come from. And of course, technically speaking, a pearl is not a stone, but we're not making those distinctions because that would be silly. Because everybody reacts to a pearl as if it were a stone. And it's kind of like a gallstone, except for an oyster. Um, but
And even human
yeah,
body stones have often been used in magic over
yeah.
the years. So,
And
um,
stones from animals, the bezoar, is a very historically important stone. You don't really see them too much now, but you certainly did historically, and they are well worth being aware of. Their magical property was they could neutralize any poison, but don't try that because it didn't actually work. Except, I believe that it did on certain things actually have some effect. It could neutralize. Was it arsenic? Perhaps I'm not sure what it was. And as we write the book, I will double check. But there was at least one poison it was somewhat effective with, which gave people that impression. But yeah, don't do that. It's not necessarily going to work for you. And hello to Gaia Thrift in the chat room. It's good to see you, Gaia Thrift,
hi, good to see
otherwise
you.
known as Ed the Pagan.
I think there is also Janet said hi in the chat as well. So
Oh,
good to see you, Janet.
yes, indeed.
Yeah.
I try to get everybody, but sometimes I get busy talking.
That's okay. That's perfectly fine. It's been very interesting outlining this book with you and trying to
It'll
figure
get
out.
more interesting.
Yeah, it's going to have a lot of interesting little details like that throughout the book. Some of the more advanced things that will be covered in this topic is, or in this book, is healing and spiritual practices
Mm-hmm.
with these stones, including really advanced full body grids for
Mm-hmm.
stones to use for healing, stones to use for emotional and trauma healing, which I think
Mm-hmm.
the majority of humans these days are in some way traumatized by something. So it's good to
I
know
think we
how to do
always have
that.
been.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
And
actually very true. We're just
it is
recognizing
a
it now.
very valuable technique.
Yes.
And, another thing people don't think about with stones is that they're not alike. Um, where your stone comes from affects it. Um, Now, the stones that you're going to buy in your local metaphysical store, they're probably not going to know where they came from, and it's probably not going to matter too much. But if you're looking at like gem quality stones, the different mines they come from affect their qualities, affect their color, and so forth. If you look at, for example, a garnet from um, hello, are we here?
I think I'm able to be heard, but I can't be seen. I'm not sure what's going on with my video. I'll figure it out while you
Your aura looks very gray.
really. Hopefully, I'm not feeling that way. I'm just going
Oh,
to
but it's
play.
gotten bigger.
I see that on the little display there.
but
Just give me a minute
yeah,
to work this out, and hopefully, I'll figure it out.
but what I was saying is that the different mines of the world have different qualities of these different stones, and we say it's the same stone, but its qualities will vary according to where you find it. And stones from India, stones from Thailand, stones from other parts of the world can vary significantly in their color, and and this can have an effect on their metaphysical aspects as well. And when we start talking about the kind of stones we're more likely to use in metaphysics, this is still true. One of the things I sometimes talk about, let me see if it's handy. This is one of my rings from the Fox mine. It was a turquoise mine. It's currently extinct, but you can see if you look at the stone, it has a very particular color, which is the color of that mine's turquoise. It's different from other turquoise. You can recognize the origin by looking at the stone. Similarly, if you look at turquoise from the Americas versus turquoise from Turkey, which is where it gets its name, they look different, but they're still turquoise. And one of the interesting things that that I've encountered during my life, there's such a thing as an endangered stones list. Those are the stones that are almost mined out, or in some cases are mined out. Probably the most celebrated example is alexandrite. Alexandrite was at one time a highly celebrated stone. And it was for a little while even relatively inexpensive. If you find it today, it's very expensive because it turned out it was only available at one mine in Russia and it tapped out. There are no new sources of alexandrite, though you can get artificial lab-grown alexandrite quite easily. But, and you know, metaphysically speaking, there's nothing wrong with lab-grown stones. There's nothing wrong actually with fully synthetic stones as long as you understand what they are and what they're good for. But there are differences in all these things, and that's one of the things we'll talk about, the difference between a naturally occurring stone, a lab-grown example of that same stone, and a synthetic example, a completely artificial example of a stone. And when that also has value. And you know, sometimes some of them do and some of them don't. And sometimes it depends on how you use it. One stone that I have been highly fond of is called marlinite. And it is certainly not a naturally occurring stone. It does come from natural ingredients. But it's very good for prosperity magic. I think it basically is mind slag that's been treated in a certain way. But another example is goldstone. And do I have it's my goldstone handy to show you? It's right here, but it's not so handy. It has fallen to the bottom of the. Oh, there. Well, no, it's not. But goldstone is similar in color to a carnelian with what appear to be gold flecks throughout it. And this is an artificial stone. It was originally made in Venice. It was originally called aventurine, although today a totally different stone has that name. But goldstone is a purely artificial stone, although, again, it's made from natural ingredients, but it's highly effective magically. So don't assume that just because it's not a natural stone, that it does not have metaphysical properties or that you cannot use it metaphysically. You totally can. So these are some of the things we'll be talking about in Rev Don's book of Stones, Metals, and Crystals. As we said earlier, the title and the cover are tentative, but that's probably what it will be called, and it will become available for pre-order fairly soon. And we expect to have it done within a certain number of weeks. And it's one of a number of books I'm working on. I'm still working on Rev Don's Book of Energy, and I am working with Lady Crystal on a book as well, which we will be talking about at some point in the future. So those are some of the things I'm doing. Hi, Krys, you're back.
Yes,
you're not
yes.
gray anymore.
No, I just had to shut down my computer and restart the whole thing. So hopefully it'll stay where it needs to be right now. But yeah, just a couple of things to wrap up. In addition to the Book of Stones that we're going to be putting out, keep an eye out for Autumn Stoneflower's first book with us.
Mm-hmm.
She will be publishing a book tentatively titled Circles and Academy, and it's the first of 3 books in this series. The target audience is middle school kids, so it will be written at an accessible level for them, and it will be about middle schoolers who are attending a Wiccan boarding school.
I think that will be lovely.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we've talked many times about how we really need more children's material.
Absolutely.
And by the time we get to fall, we're going to have quite a bit of it available, and much more coming.
Yeah, I'm
so
very
if you're a
excited
pagan
about
parent
this.
and you're looking for material for your children, come to Krellian Publishing. There will be increasing amounts of it. Well, thank you, Krys. I see we've come to the end of our half hour. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We love spending this time with you. We love getting to talk to you about our new projects at Corellian Publishing. And again, if you're interested in getting in on that first order of the Tarot of Hecate, you can find it under the Infinite Tarot button at CorellianPublishing.com. If you're interested in any of the other things we've talked about, you can find them there as well. Book of Stones, Metals, and Crystals is not up yet, but it will be probably by next week. Maybe by tomorrow, we'll see. But it's coming soon. And tomorrow, I will be back. My guest will be Ed the Pagan, and we'll be talking about the Pagan World Congress. And if you've been following Midday with Rev Don recently, you'll know I've been talking a lot about what we as a community need to do in the future. And, this is, in my mind, part of the answer to that. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow. Please join us. And for now, have a wonderful day. And let us close with our prayer, as we always do. Divine Mother Goddess, Divine Father God, beloved ancestors, we thank you for all that you do for us in our lives. And we ask you to continue to be with us and to guide us as we go forward. Beloved ones, we rejoice in your presence. And this walk we walk together. We know you are always with us, but from respect, we thank you for your presence, and may you be blessed now and always. We thank you for your presence. May you be blessed now and always. Krys, thank you for your presence, and you have a lovely night, and I will see everyone tomorrow.
Yes, blessed be everyone.